Christmas is almost here, so the advent calendars are being opened and the gifts are beginning to settle at the Christmas tree. This month's Humble Choice Christmas gift comes in the form of a whopping 15, yes 15 games. With a lot to cover, let's get straight into things. This month's Humble Original is The Corridor. Like other Humble Originals, it is a shorter experience that took me about half an hour to complete. It has a similar style to something like Stanley Parable, whilst also having a few clever game design features that make it stand up as its own game. I found the comedy and narration incredibly funny, and there were definitely a few times when I was laughing out loud. Because of its short nature, if I talk more about this game, I fear I'll be giving spoilers, but I recommend you go into this one as a fresh experience and have fun with the journey. There is just one goal: push that button. Overcooked 2 is a party game that will have all players in a frenzy. I bought this game around launch on the Nintendo Switch, so the footage here is taken from the game's trailer rather than from my PC. Navigating around Onion Kingdom in your trusty boat/bus hybrid, you and your fellow local or online chefs will encounter a variety of different kitchens to cook up a storm. Whilst tasks such as chopping, heating or washing up may seem simple, with the timer ticking and orders piling up, Overcooked 2 will certainly test your friendships and relationships with those who you play with. The sequel offers a new mechanic of throwing, and it was hilarious yet infuriating when in one rapid section, my sister and I completely missed our throw and saw our food launching into the river. With a variety in dishes, kitchens and environments, Overcooked 2 is one of my favourite party games, and an easy recommendation. What's more, the Too Many Cooks character DLC and Surf and Turf Seaside expansion are also included in this month's choice. Come on, become a monocle-equipped walrus like me. You know you want to. Children of Morta is a story-led RPG with roguelike elements. The game features a narrative revolving around a family and their confrontation from the evil that is the corruption. Its overall style reminded me a bit of Darksburg from last month, and although there is much more colour in Children of Morta, it has a generally bleak landscape with death scattered across the land. Where this game shines is with its absolutely stunning pixel art. The environments are just so rich and detailed, and every now and then the camera panned up to a beautiful dense vista point. Combat uses both the keyboard and mouse, with different abilities attached to various keys and buttons, with the mouse being used to navigate the character. In my playthrough, I took on the role of John, a family member equipped with a shield and a sword. After some upgrades, I could deal damage with the shield, a powerful ability indeed. Defense and offense at once, what more could you want? There's the standard roguelike elements in this, procedurally generated dungeons to explore, random abilities scattered in chests, oncoming enemies, you get the gist. I don't tend to like these bleak and moodier atmospheres, but the excellent pixel art and interaction of characters does a lot to make Children of Morta stand out. One Step from Eden is a deck-building roguelike. It follows the conventions of a game like Slay the Spire, building up your deck of abilities and choosing which procedurally generated route to take to reach the boss. I enjoyed this game and think deck building works well with the roguelike genre. Slay the Spire is one of my very few favourite roguelikes. The game works in real time, with yourself and the enemy working on two sides of a grid. By using the arrow keys, I had to dodge the enemy's attacks while simultaneously firing projectiles and magic to the enemy's grid by using the Q and W keys. These simultaneous actions can initially be overbearing and definitely requires full focus, so much so that in between each area I was given access to an empty grid to become accustomed to the different abilities. Magic works on a regenerative mana-based system, and there's also a basic pellet type weapon which can be constantly used. I like the pixel art, and even with the constant non-stop action, the red outlines on the different grid squares gave me warning to move out the way. Whether I listen to those warnings is an entirely different thing. If you do play this, don't be disheartened if you initially struggle with the overwhelming action. I originally thought this game was just too fast for me, but after going at it for a couple of runs, I got the hang of the systems. I'm no expert, but at least I could defeat a boss or two. The Beast Inside is an intense single-player horror game. I'll be honest, I got spooked by the menu in this one. I then played a minute and closed the game. This is incredibly intense, and I hate horror games. There's a wealth of other reviews online, from people that can actually play more than a minute of an intense horror game, so I recommend watching them. I do apologise that I can't share more about this one, except from that it scared me so much so that I exited immediately, but to be honest, it doesn't take too much for a horror game to do that. Indivisible is an RPG with a beautiful art style. Now I'm sure many of you know the history of the game and its developers. I'll be reviewing this game from my personal enjoyment of it and not on any external factors. From the get-go, there's a beautiful anime cutscene before launching me straight into the action. Anime isn't something that I usually watch, but even I could appreciate the design choices of the opening cinematic with its beautiful animation. The game features 2D platforming, which has so far been pretty light. Alongside the platforming is combat, and that's a mix between turn-based and real-time. Different button prompts tell me when an attack can take place, along with a visual prompt on when my character is about to be attacked by the enemy. This then allowed me to then dodge in time, or in quite a few cases, not dodge in time. The story centres around the young Ajna, where disaster hits her village very early on in the game. The game also features worlds coinciding at once, and although I haven't been able to explore what extent these two worlds collide, it was funny seeing enemies moments after nearly fighting to the death, being placed into Ajna's dream world and forcing the two opposite sides to interact with each other. Combat has been fluid, and the hand-drawn animation and the environment look simply gorgeous. The game offers a sizable 18 hours of gameplay according to How Long to Beat. I wasn't sure what to expect of Indivisible, because the only thing I knew about it was that it features an anime art style. I've enjoyed what I've played so far, and it's definitely made me more open into an RPG like this. Nevertheless, at its nearly 20-hour runtime, I don't think I'll be returning, simply due to my existing backlog. If, however, you're looking for a solid RPG, then I recommend Indivisible. Shining Resonance Refrain is a classic JRPG recently released on PC. I'm not a fan of JRPGs and anime, but I played the first act and liked the combat. The story went over my head a little, but I think the idea is that there's some good dragons and some bad dragons, and you have to team up with your good dragon friends to take down the big bad guys. I may have this completely wrong, so don't take my words. I like the combat in Resonance Refrain, which operates in real time. There's basic jabs and strikes, but also magic abilities, which can be activated with the bumper. I certainly like the music in this, but as it appears to be pretty standard in the JRPG formula, it hasn't swayed me onto playing Shining Resonance Refrain more than I already have. This month features Zwei the Arges Adventure and Zwei the Insurrence. Despite being from the same series, the gameplay in both games varies. The first game, Arges Adventure, is a classic 2D JRPG dungeon crawler. Again, this isn't a genre I usually enjoy, but I did find a certain sort of charm to this. The harmonica music is good, and there's this adorable smiling little cursor. Just look at it! I like the dialogue with the arguing yet loving step-siblings Piprio and Pockle. Before going into combat, the game presented a lengthy tutorial, which even it admitted was dense and required concentration. I managed to get to some grips with the combat by myself, and began launching magic to the poor dogs, or were they rabbits, standing in my path. I enjoyed the dialogue and found it to be quite witty. From a design standpoint, the environments were good, but as it is nearly a 20-year-old game, the graphics weren't the best. I didn't get too deep with the story, but it seems as if there are mysterious siblings venturing on a quest to track down a mysterious shadowy figure who is new to town. The second game, the Insurrence, is similar to the original, but this time in 3D. Again, combat and navigation is directional based, and combos are created by looking towards and right-clicking on an enemy. When a pilot falls out the sky, yet still survives, it's revealed that he is saved by a vampire, and thus owes his dark figure a considerable debt. I felt that the dialogue in this one wasn't as good as the Arges Adventure, and I feel that even though the Insurrence is a newest title, 3D games age more poorly to 2D. Still, both games will definitely scratch that JRPG itch, but because my Japanese RPG itch wasn't there in the first place, I won't be returning. Tabletop Playground is apparently a game which allows you to play tabletop games with friends with optional VR. I say apparently because despite my best efforts, matchmaking showed absolutely zero online players, and none of my friends were available to play it with me. If you have friends to play an online tabletop game with, then maybe take a look, but I can't offer much insight into this title. This month features the two Frog Detective games, and although they take up 2 choices, I'll be putting them both in one review. I absolutely adored these story detective games, and in fact they reminded me of a humble original. Both games were incredibly funny, and although there is no voice acting, there are enough awkward silences to make me genuinely laugh out loud multiple times. Frog Detective just has this incredible charm to it, with a variety of characters, each with their own personality. I played the first game in one sitting, which took me about 30 minutes to complete, and I played about 15 minutes of Frog Detective 2, The Case of the Invisible Wizard, and can't wait to play more and get to the bottom of another mystery. The game's store page is clear about the short time, so you should treat this as an interactive book, because believe me, the comedy alone is worth the price of admission. In the first game, you're tasked with solving the mystery of the haunted island, and in the second, there's once again another mystery, and this time in the form of, you guessed it, an invisible wizard. With its colourful, cute aesthetic, genius writing, and exactly my type of humour, I find it hard to think of someone who wouldn't finish these short games with a smile on their face. Still there? Up next is an intricate story-rich point-and-click. Set in a space station in the far reaches of space, Still There is an incredibly technical point-and-click. So much so that after the opening tutorial, I found myself becoming very lost. There are just so many switches, buttons that go beep, and toggles to, well, toggle. I liked the onboard AI with its blunt, sarcastic delivery, but unfortunately I don't have the time to invest into this deep and complex experience. Please don't think a complex game is bad, as my short time with my choice reviews just doesn't give me enough time to learn the systems, so if you're looking for a game to really put your mind into, that moves away from the generally simple point and clicks, then take a look at Still There. I'll preface this review of struggling by stating 3 things. Number 1, this game features excessive cartoonish gore, so feel free to skip to the next review. You'll find timestamps in the description. And number 2, I personally don't think that gore is funny. I don't mind gory moments in a game if it's used for effect, but gore just doesn't work as humour for me. And thirdly, I played this game, along with the other games of this month, with a sprained finger. That's down to too much DualSense usage, I think. In struggling, you play as some gory abomination, and use triggers to control each of the 2 arms. Tough control schemes have worked in the past, and I've enjoyed games like Octodad and Manual Samuel with a similar control mechanic. Unfortunately, with struggling, I often found my arms becoming completely stuck, having to drag my limbs off the floor again and again. Because I don't enjoy the grotesque graphics, I didn't have enough of a motive to battle the tough control scheme. In Octodad, although it was purposely difficult to control, I was interested in the story. There's definitely a few moments that will make those who enjoy struggling's humour laugh, but it isn't for me. I can't fault this game for being creative, but for me, like the game's title, this was a struggle to play. Path of Giants is an atmospheric puzzler with a focus on single-player teamwork. The game served as a nice relaxing experience, solving puzzles on snowy cliff faces. The goals of the puzzle is simple. Place the 3 coloured characters on their coloured spots. With multiple platforms in each area, the characters have to be arranged to give step-ups to each other. It's like in Uncharted when Sully gives Nate a boost up to a previously unreachable ladder. Moving around can take some planning, but on the occasions that I did make a mistake, the smallness of each area makes it easy to rectify, so no progress is lost. With Path of Giants' well-designed puzzles and breezy environments, see the 2 definitions, cold and relaxing, this game is a welcome break from the constant demand other games warrant from me. This month, new premium customers get a free month of EA Play Pro when they sign up to this month's Humble Choice, and existing premium and classic subscribers get a $5 off coupon for a month of EA Play Pro. For committed customers, this discount really isn't appealing, especially with EA Play's inclusion on Game Pass very soon, and this deal generally feels more like advertising and not a valuable addition to the lineup. But if you're new to Humble and the games interest you, you can't go wrong with trying out EA's latest and greatest games. So, what games should you choose? Well, for a couple months now, premium and classic subs have gotten to pick all the games, and unsurprisingly, this is the same with November's month. Look, this bundle isn't for me, and if I wasn't reviewing, I certainly would have skipped this one out. I already owned Overcooked 2, and whilst I enjoyed Path of Giants and the Frog Detective games, they both had very low sale prices. I had no one to play Tabletop Playground with, and in future multiplayer humble gaming sessions, I'm sure Overcooked 2 would be more desired than Tabletop Playground. Still There is good for those looking for complexity, but I'm really not. The rest of the games, well, they're either roguelikes, JRPGs or horror. Admittedly, I did have fun with this month's roguelikes, but except from Path to Eden, which I may try a few more rounds at, there's nothing really enthralling me to return. This month's Humble Original Corridor is up there with my favourites and is genuinely funny. Nevertheless, it's less than £2 on Steam, or most likely available with next month's bundle purchase via the Trove. However, if you don't already own Overcooked 2 and have some friends to play with, then it really is an excellent title, and especially with the DLC included, worth the $12 price tag, combined with some other games. JRPG and roguelike lovers will find a lot to love about this bundle, and the short frog detective games will certainly be worth your time. I think that with all these games, as long as you know what the game is like to play, then you'll have fun. If you want to play struggling due to its gory design and purposely obtrusive controls, then you'll have fun. If you want to play an intense and scary horror game, then the beast inside will be appealing. Hey, even if you're looking for something to play your tabletop games with, then Tabletop Playground will be for you. But for me, even if a game truly excels in their genre, but I still don't like the genre, then despite its best efforts, the game won't be for me. And that's how I felt about this month's Humble Choice. Did you know I have a Patreon? You'll find a link in the description if you'd like to support the channel and get some benefits in return. I'm also a writer for Rapid Reviews UK, so if you'd like to read some of my written reviews for some new release titles, then you'll find that in the description too. Thanks for watching.